Let's talk about hearing loss. In the United States, about 2 to 3 out of every 1,000 babies are born with some degree of hearing loss. Each year, around 4,000 infants are born deaf, and more than half of them have a genetic cause. Syndromes like Waardenburg, Usher, Pendred, and Jervell, and Lang-Nielsen are some of the common ones we see. But hearing loss isn't always inherited. It can also be acquired from infections during pregnancy like rubella or cytomegalovirus, or from trauma or long-term exposure to loud noise. Now here's where it gets important for nurses. Hearing loss increases with age. About 2% of adults in their 40s and early 50s have disabling hearing loss. That number jumps to 8% in the 50s and 60s, 25% in the mid-60s to mid-70s, and up to half of people over 75. This is why hearing loss is such a big public health issue, and why screening and treatment matter so much. Types of hearing loss. There are 4 main categories. First, conductive hearing loss. This happens when something prevents sound from getting through the outer or middle ear. Think about earwax impaction, otitis media, or otosclerosis. Second, sensory neural hearing loss, caused by damage to the cochlea or the vestibulocochlear nerve. This is the most common permanent form. Third, mixed hearing loss, when conductive and sensory neural problems occur together. And fourth, functional or psychogenic hearing loss, not related to structural problems, but instead an emotional or psychological reaction. Shahak, genetics in nursing practice. Several hearing disorders are linked to genetics. Some are autosomal dominant, like branchiotorenal syndrome, neurofibromatosis type 2, otosclerosis, Stickler syndrome, and Waardenburg syndrome. Others are autosomal recessive, like connexin 6 hearing loss, Jervell and Lang-Nielsen syndrome, Pendred syndrome, Refsum disease, and Usher syndrome. There are also X-linked forms, like Alport syndrome. For nurses, assessment is key. That means asking about family history. Does hearing loss appear across several generations? Was there relatedness, such as cousins marrying? What was the age at onset? On the patient side, we ask about dizziness, tinnitus, facial weakness, headaches, or vision problems like retinitis pigmentosa. We note pigment changes like a white forelock in Waardenburg syndrome or thyroid issues in Pendred. And we always ask about prenatal infections and ototoxic medications. Clinical manifestations. Deafness can be partial or complete. Early signs include tinnitus, struggling to hear in groups, or needing to turn up the television. Beyond the mechanics, hearing loss affects people's lives in deep ways. Changes in attitude, communication, safety, and social interactions. Students may fall behind, pedestrians may not hear cars, and people may gradually withdraw from others, leading to isolation. Often it's not the patient who notices first. It's their family or friends. And even when it's recognized, some people avoid treatment because they don't want to wear hearing aids, or they feel embarrassed. Others are open to help but need encouragement. As nurses, we have to recognize both the medical and emotional sides of this condition. Behavioral indicators. There are certain patterns we should watch for. Speech deterioration, flat-sounding speech, slurred words, or dropped endings. Fatigue. Straining to hear is exhausting and can make people irritable. Indifference or depression, losing interest in life when conversations are hard to follow. Social withdrawal, avoiding situations where hearing loss could cause embarrassment. Insecurity and indecision, lack of self-confidence from not hearing clearly. Suspiciousness, assuming people are whispering or leaving them out. False pride, pretending to hear when they cannot. Loneliness. Enforced silence can become frightening. Domination of conversation, talking more to stay in control and avoid mistakes. These aren't just personality quirks, they're red flags for hearing loss. Prevention. The biggest environmental risk? Noise. Noise is an unavoidable part of modern life, but prolonged or extreme noise damages hearing permanently. Persistent noise can even affect the whole body, raising blood pressure, heart rate, and stress hormones. Noise-induced hearing loss happens with long-term exposure to loud environments, machinery, engines, artillery, or loud music. Acoustic trauma comes from a single intense exposure, like an explosion. Damage often starts around 4,000 hertz, a high frequency, but spreads with continued exposure. The threshold for risk is about 85 to 90 decibels. For reference, normal conversation is around 40 decibels, Many power tools reach 90. A jet plane can reach 150. Prolonged exposure above 80 can cause permanent damage. That's why occupational regulations exist. NIOSH recommends a limit of 85 decibels over an 8-hour shift. OSHA allows up to 90 with a maximum peak of 135. Ear protection is the single best prevention. Once those delicate hair cells in the cochlea are destroyed, the loss is permanent. Risk factors also include recurrent ear infections, perforated tympanic membranes, family history, congenital malformations, low birth weight, and use of ototoxic medications like gentamicin or loop diuretics. Gerontologic considerations. With age, the ear changes. Cerumen becomes harder and drier, making impaction more likely. The tympanic membrane may thin or stiffen. Cells in the cochlea degenerate. Many older adults develop presbycusis, progressive, high-frequency hearing loss that eventually spreads to lower frequencies. Other factors like diabetes, kidney disease, and long-term medication use add to the problem. Drugs such as aminoglycosides, aspirin, loop diuretics, and certain chemotherapy agents can all be ototoxic. For older adults, the impact goes beyond hearing. Hearing loss is tied to social isolation, depression, cognitive decline, falls, hospitalizations, and even increased mortality. It can strain relationships, interfere with safety alarms, and reduce quality of life. That's why regular screening is so important. Medicare's welcome visit and annual exams now include hearing checks. Management. Not all hearing loss is reversible, but even when it's permanent, oral rehabilitation can help. Early detection and referral are critical. Nurses play a central role, asking the right questions, catching subtle signs, and supporting use of assistive devices or rehab services. Communication strategies are essential. Speaking loudly is not the answer, especially if the patient can't hear high frequencies. Instead, we adapt by talking into the better hearing ear, facing the patient, using gestures and expressions, and making sure lighting is good. Communication barriers and accommodations. One major issue is that people who are deaf or hard of hearing often have other health problems that go untreated because of communication barriers. Providers are legally obligated to accommodate, and that means interpreters when needed. Certified interpreters ensure accurate and respectful communication. We also need to remember, lip reading is limited, even in the best conditions. Masks, dark rooms, or diagnostic procedures where the provider is out of sight all make it impossible. That's why nurses must advocate, whether it's arranging interpreters, using writing, or ensuring clear visibility. Key strategies include always ask the patient how they prefer to communicate. Do not assume writing or gestures are enough. Give full attention, avoid multitasking, and use context clues. Never pretend to understand if you don't. Clarify instead. Keep written material simple and clear. If the patient uses speech reading, face them directly. Keep your face well lit and speak slowly with natural pauses. If your mouth is covered by a mask, switch to writing or another method. Nurses can be the catalyst for change, making sure patients who are deaf or hard of hearing are included, understood, and safe. Bottom line, hearing loss is more than an ear problem. It's a communication, safety, and quality of life issue. It has genetic causes, environmental risks, and age-related changes. It affects families and communities, not just individuals. For nurses, the role is to detect it early, understand its impact, educate about prevention, and most importantly, adapt our communication. By doing that, we help patients maintain connection, independence, and dignity, even in the face of hearing loss.